Good morning, afternoon, evening, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I have just gotten up, so I might sound a little bit groggy as we get into things. But I have conceived of an idea most ingenious. I love quite a bit of other games other than Final Fantasy, which is what I mainly do on the channel. And having something that I can put out on a fairly regular basis to help out with the schedule of uploads, I think would be cool. And so I figured, why not play some Limbus Company, which I enjoy. I really like the Project Moon, not to be confused with Type Moon, world and setting in their games. So I figured, maybe I do a mirror dungeon on Mondays, or a monthly mirror dungeon, which I chop up and put out over a month. And it would be a very easy, very chilled out way of getting some stuff out and getting you guys maybe into Limbus Company if you've ever heard of it. So we're going to get into it. Gonna load in here. This is just intended to be a way that I can talk to you guys a little bit, chill out, hang out, kind of record it live, whereas a lot of the videos that I do like to pre-record and then voice over. That's how I do a lot of the raid series stuff for Final Fantasy. There we go. As you can see, I do play this game a fair bit. We got some starter buffs, but let's get into it. I think we're gonna keep it safe since this is the first time doing it for a recording. With awe and little to be not plushy. We'll get into it with Bleed. Bleed is the first archetype that I went with on playing the game. I believe my first real pull of the game, because this is a gacha game if you're not familiar with it. I pulled N-Corp Rodian back in season 1, and I really like Rodian anyway. I know some people feel that she is a little bit flat as a character. I think she's great, but I pulled her, and I was hooked from there. I suppose you might say nailed to make it more topical to N-Corp, but as you can see, I've got the splash from Kurokumo Clan Gregor up, because I just pulled him. It's never not funny to me that the N-Corp identities are very good against other N-Corp floors in the mirror dungeon. As you can see, especially if you've got some upgrades, for the mirror dungeons, you've got your IDs uptied a bit. They kind of wreck shop, which is nice. Bleed is definitely one of those archetypes for a lot of the game where you can just press the win rate button and sit back and relax. So if you want a more chilled out experience, that's definitely an option. I just like the aesthetic of them myself. I think the hardcore, like Knight and Inquisitor, that laugh. Dawn's laugh on her N-Corp ID is great. But yeah, they're very cool. They very much remind me of Warhammer and Warhammer Fantasy, in that kind of like an inquisitorial way. If you know, you know. Heathcliff is getting bossed around a bit. And that's alright. N-Corp Sinclair is going to come in and clean it up. God, that's cool splash art. I really like the Kurokumo clan IDs as well. I wish they had more poise, a little bit more similar to the Blade lineage, although I definitely understand that they might feel a little bit too similar if they did. On the team that I have that's more poise, I've got Kurokumo and Blade lineage forming most of those. I don't have everything I need for Blade lineage. Like, I don't have a Blade lineage Merceau, which takes the ID of Bamboo-Headed Kim. From what I understand, although I don't know a whole lot about that archetype, it seems like Merceau's ID for Blade Lineage is kind of the engine of that, much in the same way that Faust over here, the one who grips Faust, is kind of the engine for N-Corp. But I would have to look into that. N-Corp Faust is pretty cool. You can kind of slot her into anywhere. I think the only team I don't, in general, put her onto is the charge team that I have, which is made up of mostly W-Core and Multicrack Office IDs, of which Multicrack Faust is in there. Because she just does damage, man. That's a good ID. But Faust, N-Corp Faust, she is just an incredibly easy way to get a lot of sanity really, really easily. Because if you field her and you're running N-Corp or a lot of IDs with the orange skill color, oh, we got a wound clear, very good. And you link up 4 of those for a resonance, you get free sanity and you get nails. And if you run her on the bench, that's also pretty good in any team as long as you have those orange colored skills. Because if you get 3 of those together, you get a free 15 SP as well. It's like, what more could you possibly want? Getting those whistles is so big for N-Corp because you get the Fanatic buff as well if she gets her skill there off, her support skill. This isn't the best as far as absolute resonance farming, but that doesn't really matter with a bleed team all that much. Kurikumo has a lot of pride skills, those blue skills, so you could do that with them, probably a little bit easier. Like I mentioned, I liked running them, both because it's funny and ironic story-wise to run Blade Lineage and Kurikumo IDs together, but a lot of them have the pride skills, so you can just charge up everybody and have a whole bunch of damage, a whole lot of good clashing. And that's kind of the ethos behind it. Now some of you might ask, why are you doing mirror dungeons and not the story of Limbus? Well, there's a couple reasons. One, there's plenty of people on YouTube already who do that, and they do a great job of it. And a lot of it, for me, would just be me sitting there reading. I wouldn't be able to contribute a whole lot besides the occasional grunt and growl. I don't feel like that would be incredibly entertaining as I just read through. As well as, you know, I'd like to be able to do something that I can do a little bit more variety and can run for a little bit longer as well, if that makes sense. Like, I don't want to have to wait for new cantos to drop, which are the chapter equivalents in the game for the story, and they're fun intervalos and stuff, the little side stories and whatnot. But it is one of those things where I don't feel like I'm quite equipped well enough to do those sorts of videos. Could be a good stream if I could get some interaction, but in general I feel like I'm better suited to the mirror dungeon, as well as the fact that I just feel like it's a little bit more fun of an experience for both me and you guys at home. And it gives an opportunity to kind of talk and ramble off topic. Oh yeah, Rodian doing work. If you get N-Corp Rodian to do Ironclad Retribution and she has the Fanatic buff, that's good. I'm hoping we get some Noggle and Hammer Scriptures, which is an item that you can get from the Mirror Dungeon, and it just pumps the damage that your N-Corp IDs can do. It's very, very, very good. We'll do sandwood painting on that guy. Go. Also, I feel like this is a pretty good gateway to start expanding out into different games that I can play, because I don't just play Final Fantasy, believe it or not, although I do play a fair bit. There's other games, other things that I can do and kind of sub in here and there, just as a treat, as a fun little thing to do. Recently, there was the HoloCure patch that came out. I don't know if anybody's interested in that, but I've had a pretty good time with it. Noelle's quite fun. Marine Sancho is quite fun as well. She seems like a money farming character, which is kind of nice because it has been a little bit difficult, depending on how good you are at the game, to get those coins. Actually, I believe this morning, at time of recording, they put a little patch out, which buffed a lot of the characters, it seemed like. Think Marine, Noelle. What was it? I think it was Sada Pecora and was it Bales maybe? Got a little buff. I'm sure at some point I'll do a good little VTuber video, probably like I did with the visual novel video, if you watch that. Because there is a fair bit of stuff that I'd like to do, that I like to, kind of a pet project for the channel that I'm calling tentatively the Otaku Files, like the nerd I am. And what those are going to be is just more anime-themed stuff, more along the lines of that visual novel video, where I'd like to give it a more like a general overview, and then maybe later go into a more specified, focused look at some bit of weeb culture or stuff. Like I really like to do a video on manga, like the history of manga, a brief overview, and some of the big players. I did have a video up on the channel about anime, however, that got struck, which I don't believe it should have, so that is currently unviewable, but I plan to remaster it and throw it back up on the channel, specifically because I think it might be a bit of a blessing in disguise, because that video was pretty poorly put together. The audio quality was quite bad. I will freely admit that. So I'm going to take that as a chance to put together just a better product, you know what I mean? Because I think that that could be a very good video, but it needs a little work. It needs a little fine-tuning on it. Unfortunately, I believe I still have the script I wrote out for it, and I think I might still have the editing stems for it, but nothing crazy, nothing I can't put together at a later date. Maybe get that out in a couple months. I make no promises though, because I do a lot on a daily basis between work and family and trying to get to the gym, and of course trying to unwind and just play games to play games too. I've been playing the mess out of that new Alliance raid in Final Fantasy XIV. The Juno raid for Final Fantasy XI. That's a good raid, man. I'm tempted today, at time of recording, to go and play it and record it, because I have had a lot of fun with it. I hope everybody else has as well, because like, man, that's been some good stuff. That is a good raid. And it's not an easy raid. It is not an easy raid at all. You've got to watch yourself. I believe if you're familiar with Final Fantasy content in general, you'll already have been aware of a couple different people who've done videos on that raid, and it's so good. It's so good. I very much encourage you to go do it, even if you aren't usually someone who goes and does raid content or 24-man content. It's worth it. It's wild. It's so cool. It's so cool. Much more interactive. A lot more danger to it as well. I was really surprised with how killy it was. Like every time I run it, I mean, I know it's on content. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more difficult than it will be in 1 to 2 years. But I think it's going to have some staying power. I really do. As long as you're synced down to that level that it's going to be, depending on where they take the scaling of the game in the future, it's going to be legit no matter what time you run it. There's some stuff in there where if you fall asleep at the wheel and you aren't paying attention, you are going to get smacked. And that's just how it's going to go. Specifically the first fight, well actually all the fights, but the first fight is really cool for certain reasons, and I think it's a very good prep to the rest of it. The second boss fight, oh my goodness, I was legitimately blown away. It is the kind of thing where I've been wanting for that kind of risk taking from the encounter design team for Final Fantasy for a while, and man, they just did. They did about everything right that you could. It was really cool. Really interesting way to handle the fight. And the last, oh my goodness, I'm not going to say anything, just in case you haven't seen it. But that is a fun, hectic fight. Everybody's running around. Everybody's figuring it out. There's cool stuff. There's a lot of damage. If you are a healer, if you're one of those healers that have joined the game and have been complaining about not having as much to do, not having as much healing or resin to do, you are going to like it. I think you are really going to take to it, because there is a lot of damage that comes out. There's a lot of sneaky things that can come out and hit your party members. And yeah, it's just so interactive. I really enjoy it. Alright. There's one of these Abnos left. I actually can't remember if anybody knows the lore of Project Moon better than I, which, to be fair, is quite a few people. Escu being one of those. Does anybody remember if the Pikachulam, those little guys that we were fighting earlier, are those considered abnormalities? I genuinely can't remember if they are straight up abnos or if they're just some kind of weird creature. I think they're abnormalities, right? Because, or distortions maybe? I believe that was touched on in Kanto 5. And speaking of Kantos, how's everybody enjoying Kanto 6? I'm about a third of the way through now, and oh boy, I am both fascinated, interested, engaged, and terrified about where it's going to go. And there's a lot more going on than I expected it to have going on. A lot more moving parts and characters, and it's doing a good job keeping everybody kind of on the same path as far as it being a narrative track that it's running down so far. I'm very interested in where they're going to go. It makes way more sense how Murder on the Warp Train, that Intervalo, how that kind of fits. I like it a lot more. I liked Murder on the Warp Train a lot. I played through that event when it was out, and it feels like now there's much more set up there than I thought was going on. I appreciate that much more now. Not just because they gave us some really good IDs.